Hi, welcome to Prep Bytes. Now, we're going to go in and continue on a journey where we're trying to go in and create this complete React application with this functionality, this bunch of functionality, like you can go in and text multiple people, you can text a single person, and so on and whatnot. Okay, so in the previous session, in the previous video, we had went in and discussed, or we went in and created a basic layout for our application. And it wasn't much, but this is going to be setting the rules for how we're going to be building the overall application, the overall UI of the application. So what we did is we made this main container. So if I take you back to the code that we had created, what we have is a main container within which we have our sidebar component and our work area component. So the sidebar component is something that's going to go in and stay fixed, right? So our sidebar is not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay fixed there as it is. And depending on whatever buttons you're going to click within your sidebar, we can go in and load the corresponding component in the work area. Okay, so I'm just calling it work area for the time being. Later on, when we implement routing, we'll change it up a bit more. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's just go in and directly start building up our sidebar. So in order to go in and get started with the sidebar, I need this bunch of icons, right? So I'm going to use this MUI material icons that are freely available. And the best thing about this is you don't need to go in and worry about importing each one of them, remembering the names and all of that. The MaterialUI library makes this process really simple. Like, you don't need to worry much. You can if you want an icon, you can just search for it over here. So let's say I'm going to just search for user. I'll get in the icon. I can just go in and import it directly. It's fairly easy to use up as well and set up. Okay, so there are a few things that you're going to go in and need first though. The first thing that you'll have to do to use these icons is to go in and install them into your React application first and foremost. Now, doing this is fairly simple. Okay, so if you go in and visit this particular page, the link will be there in the description below. It'll directly go in and tell you, okay, so if you don't use MaterialUI in your project yet, install the icons package with this particular command. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this command, all right, and jump back into VS Code, throw this into my terminal, and then just press enter. Okay, so what this would go in and do is it'll go in and install the requisite library. Okay, and you can even go in and view it in your package.json here. So you can see we have material icons, MUI icons material. So all of these are available. Even though MaterialUI does provide us with a bunch of pre-built elements, we're not going to be using them. So even if you see in this sidebar, they have a bunch of elements that you can go in and use. And it's fairly easy to go in and get started with as well. Now, the only sole reason I'm using this is so as to go in and get access to these icons. So for example, I have this user icon over here, right? So this is another icon that I have. So I'll just pick this one up for the time being. Okay, I'll say this would do. This one looks good enough. So I'm going to just go in and click on this. Okay, and jump back into my VS Code. I am going to go in and open up my sidebar component. So this is my sidebar component that I've created. Okay, and within which I just have a text. Okay, that's all we had went in and did in the previous session. Okay, fine. I'm going to just open my CSS to the other side so that it makes it a bit more on the easy side for us. Okay, close up my terminal. There we go. Now what I can do here is, let me just remove this sidebar text. And let's think on the design first and foremost, right? Before I start throwing in icons left and right, if you take a look at the design that we are trying to build, the sidebar mainly consists of three main components, right? We have the header with a bunch of icons, we have a search bar, and then we have another conversation page where all the one-to-one chats, all the group chats will go in and pop up that we were part of previously. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this header bar. So we have a header, search, and the conversations. Okay, so I'm going to just directly jump back in here and create up a few divs. Okay, and the first one is going to be for my header, right? So let me say SB, which stands for sidebar header. All right, so I'm going to have my sidebar header here. Let me just give it some text for the time being, just for reference. Okay, I'm going to go and create up a bunch more. So we have a header, we have the search, and we also have the conversations. Okay, so I'm going to add these up here. Search and conversations. There we go. Okay, so once we are done with that, our UI kind of looks like this. Okay, so you can see there are three divs that are present over here. Present one after another. So that's pretty good. That's all in all pretty good. Okay, so we're going to start building everything up from within our header. Okay, and we'll see how this goes. Okay. So let me just go in and take care of this red border first and foremost. It's, we'll just remove this out. It's only for our reference. Okay, I'm gonna go in and remove out these. Let me give it a background color as well so that we can differentiate it thoroughly. I'm gonna give it Alice blue so that it's kind of visible. The work area is a bit more visible. Okay, so for our header, what I'm going to do is we need a bunch of icons, right? So for these icons, as I said, we are going to be using the MaterialUI icons. It makes the whole process pretty simple. Okay, so I'm going to just directly jump into the browser back again, search for this icon. There you go. So I'm going to start with the account icon, okay, because the user icon. So I'll start with this. Let me just click on the text over here, jump back into VS Code. And then the very first thing I'm going to be doing here is to just import that particular icon. Okay, so because of this, what would happen here is I'm going to just say account circle icon. We're going to get it imported, save this. And now if I jump back into my browser and open this up, you can see the icon is now visible over there. Okay, the icon is present in its place. So that is all in all good. Okay, pretty good. All right, fine. Now, what else to do? Okay, now, but another thing I want to do is I want to make these buttons clickable, right? MaterialUI makes this process easier as well. So what you can do here is there is a particular component which is called as the icon button component. Okay, so there's another component which is again taken in from the MaterialUI library. And the best thing about this is if you have an icon, you can basically wrap it inside of the icon button component and it becomes a clickable button. Okay, that's it. It's as straightforward as that. Now, if I go in and save this, and if I take it back to my browser, you'll be able to see now I have a clickable button with this really cool, this ripple effect whenever I go in and click it. Okay, so this is how we're going to be bringing in all of these icons. Okay, so I'm not going to put in wasting much time. I'm going to just quickly go in and do a time lapse and just directly bring in all the icons that we want. All right, so as you can see, I've added in a bunch of icons over here altogether, and these are basically the same icons that have been used up in the the design mockup as well. So by going in and doing so, one thing you'll be able to notice that we currently have access to all of these icons, and all of these icons are clickable as well. Okay. But the next thing that we want to go in and take care would be that, yeah, so you can see that all of these icons are present inside of a rounded rectangle with some padding and some margin onto the left hand side as well. Okay, so we're going to go in and get that done. Also, we need to think in terms of how exactly can we go in and take the avatar icon, the user icon onto the left hand side and all the other icons to the right hand side. So we'll need to go in and do that. Okay, so let's try it out once, let's give it a go. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into my VS Code. And first and foremost, what we're going to do is for this header class, okay, I'm going to go in and give it some background color, which is going to be white, okay, according to the design that we have. I'm also going to give it some border radius as well. So the soft edges, right? So border radius, that's the property we want. I'm going to give 20 pixels of border radius. And let's give it a bit of padding. Okay, so for now, I'm going to just go in and say, we'll see how the design goes in and looks out. Because as far I recall, the top and the bottom padding is larger as compared to the left and right padding, right? So what we can do here is we can provide two values to this. So what I'm going to do is I'll give 10 pixels and 5 pixels, right? So the idea here is that if I'm giving it two values, the first value that I'm going to go and give, the first value that I'm giving is the padding for the top and bottom, and the second value is going to be the padding for left and right. Okay, so this is kind of what I've done over here. So we've given some padding. Let us also give some margin as well. So I'm going to give a 5 pixel margin. Okay, and we'll see if if that kind of makes things work, if it looks good or not. Okay, now thinking in terms of how exactly are we going to go in and partition these icons out, because we want the account circle icon to be on the left hand side and all the other icons to be aligned on the right hand side. Okay, so what I can do here is, again, I'm going to just utilize flex for this. Okay, so let's just go in and set the display mode to flex for our header. And what I can do is I'm just going to go in and wrap the account icon, this one, inside of a div, and the other bunch of icons inside of another div. So in this case, what would happen over here is you can kind of say that the header, the sidebar header class, okay, or the sidebar header element only goes in and has two child elements right now, which is two of these divs. So what I can do is, if the display mode has been set down to flex, I can go in and use justify content to go in and align them around in the main axis, right? So I'm going to use spaced between, so that it just, okay, we are going to go in and use spaced around so that we get a bit of margin as well. Okay, so it'll go in and leave us a bit of margin. Okay, so let's just see that what exactly have we done here exactly. Let's see if some changes need to be made. Okay, so that doesn't look pretty. Okay, fine. So I think the problem was we had already given in some padding and we used spaced around. So I'm going to change it to space between, so that there is no margin between the first and the last element, right? Okay, that looks a bit better. Okay, so now you can see I have these clickable buttons. The margin seems like it's not enough, so we're going to just give in like 10 pixels of margin maybe. Okay, that looks a bit more better. Okay, so now it looks like a proper header with some icons that I can go in and click around on. Okay, so this is all in all good. Now let's just move into the search area. Okay, so we are done with the top header. Okay, and again, the best thing here is, as we build a responsive design over here, so we can add in some minimum width to this as well. But for the time being though, I'll say this is all in all good. Okay, and now let's just move into creating that search area. Okay, all right, fine. So I'm gonna jump back into my VS Code and let's see. All right, so I have this search bar container. Okay, inside of this, I need to definitely go in and create an input element. Okay, so I'm going to create an input element here. And what we'll have to go in and do is that, okay, it's going to have some sort of text present inside of it, right? So if I go in and take a look at my design, okay, let's take a look at our design. So according to our design, we have a search icon, and then we have the place to write. Okay, so let's get a search icon. Okay, so again, it's fairly easy to use MaterialUI. You just go in and you search for the icon you want. Okay, and you'll get a bunch of icons. Okay, you can easily click on the import this particular text, which helps you to go in and import that component or that icon into your React application. Okay, so there you go. I'm going to click on that, bring it into my VS Code, and then just add that icon in here. Okay, so let's just add it in. So I have my search icon. So the two things that I would want in this is going to be the search icon, okay, followed by the input, the input box. Now the input box also requires some text inside of it, which is just search. Okay, so I'm going to give it a placeholder, and let's just say search. All right, so that and all is good. But by just doing this, our search bar looks a bit, we can say it's a bit sad. Okay, so let's just fix this. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to give it a background, and also we want it to go in and align vertically, like both of these we want to go and make them align in the center so that they are properly, right now you can see that the search box is a bit to the bottom side, right? So you want to align them to the center vertically. Okay, so what we can do for this again is fairly simple. We have this the sidebar search thing. Okay, so sidebar search, let's just go in and start at the same exact thing. So background color and border radius and padding and margin, I'm going to keep it the same. I'm going to just borrow it from the header class. All right, and I'll also borrow display. Okay, let me just borrow display as well. Okay, so I'm going to copy display. Let's just put it up here. Now what I want to do is I want to align my items in the cross axis, right? So for that we have this property called align items. I'm going to put it as center. Okay, so let's see what difference did this make. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here. Okay, now things look a bit better. Okay, things do look a bit better. Okay, fine. I think we'll need a bit more padding to the left and the right hand side. Okay, so what I do is I've already given it as 5 pixels. Let's just change it to 10 pixels. Okay, so let's see how this makes it look. Okay, seems good enough. All right. Okay, fine. And then what we can do here is we have this entire search bar, right? Okay, so we don't want any outline for this. Okay, so let's go in and do something. I'm going to go in and jump back into my VS Code. All right, let's give a class to our input element, which I'll say as search box. Okay, I'm gonna keep this same UI schema, so maybe it would come in handy later on. Okay, so I'll go for search box. All right, and now what we can start with would be taking out the outline width, right? So we have an outline, right? So I'm gonna just go and take this outline width and we can just set it to 0. Okay, so the reason why we are going in and doing so is because we want to go in and remove the outline width as well as the border. Okay, so let's just go in and say border equal to none. All right, so this would go in and make it so that the border that we get is got taken out. We also want to go in and increase the font size a bit more, I would say. So for now, by default, we are at by default it's going to be 16 pixels. Let's go for 2 REM maybe. Okay, so it's going to go for 32 pixels, I presume. Okay, so let's just see what monstrosity did we manage to cook up now. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't look bad, but the text is a bit on the bigger side. So I'll go for maybe 1.5 REM. Okay, looks a bit better. Let's take it down to 1.25. Okay, that seems a bit better. Okay, now what I also want to do is that between both of these, we want a bit of spacing as well, right? We want a bit of spacing. So what I can do would be to just jump into my search box, all right? And let's just give it some margin left, a fixed margin, I would say, of maybe around 10 pixels. Okay, so that the text and the icon would have a bit of spacing between them. Okay, so you'd be able to go in and write things onto it. Okay, so let's just save this up, jump back into our browser. Let's see how things are. Okay, so we have a working search box. Okay, so I can type things over here, and depending on whatever I'm going to type, I will have the conversations to go in and filter out. That's kind of the feature that we want here. Okay, so this is good. Okay, I'll say if you want to initialize the search, we can make this button to be clickable, right? We can do that as well, because rather than refreshing it instantaneously. Okay, we'll make it into a button just in case. Okay, in case they want to go in and search it again. For that case, we'll make this into a button as well, so that it looks a bit more uniformly. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna just jump into my VS Code, and here let's just drop this inside of an icon button component. All right, so I'm going to take this in, put it inside of this, and that most probably would go in and suit our needs. Okay, so let's just go back into our browser. Let's see what's the case here. Okay, we have a bit too much of top and bottom padding. Okay, so I'm going to reduce it. Let's just go in and reduce it. I'm going to say, so for this search bar box, let's reduce it to maybe 5 pixels. Okay, so when I go in and do that, yeah, now it seems a bit better. Okay, now it seems a bit better. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Okay, so we can also go in and click on this, and you'll be able to go in and perform some searches. All right, now for the third component, which is the conversations tab, as you can see. Okay, so this conversations thing is supposed to go in and take up whatever is the remaining space. So what we can do here is, okay, let's try to go in and fix this. Okay, so we're gonna just work on with the size for the time being, and whatever is the data that is to be displayed inside of it, we'll make a sample template for it. Okay, so because there's gonna be there's just two things we need to pass it, which is the username and the last message. And we can also, I'll say, add in one more, which would be the last scene, right? Or, the last message, whatever data that you want to get displayed. So I was thinking, much like how we have it in WhatsApp, we can add in a small timestamp at the bottom right panel. Okay, so for the time being though, we'll just go in and build this up. Okay, so for going in and achieving this, let's just move back. So first and foremost, I'm going to try to go in and give it some proper background and everything else. So we'll go with SB conversations, right? So SB conversations, there we go. So SB conversations, I'm going to go in with the same background color, the same background, the border radius, the same padding. Okay, I don't think we're going to need any such sort of padding. Okay, we'll take in some padding as well and a margin. And yeah, that would suffice, I would say. Okay, so let's just go in and add all of this up. And now if I go in back to my browser and open up the app that we are creating, let's just go in and save it in both the places. And there you go. So let's see. Okay, we are not getting any updations. Let's see. SB conversations. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I don't know. I think I might not have saved it. All right. So you can see it's still just going in and only occupying whatever is the height required for the content. Okay, so that's something we need to fix. So we need to go in and occupy the whatever is the available, height or remaining height within this sidebar container. Okay, so how exactly are we going to achieve this? Simple. Again, flex. Okay, there's nothing much in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm again going to go in and use some flex grow here. So let me just jump back into my code. And if I look at the main container, so which is our sidebar container. So the sidebar container, I can set its display mode to that of flex. Okay, so the sidebar container is going to go in and have the SB header, the SB search, and all of the additional things. So whatever height they are going to require, they will occupy. But I want my conversations component to go in and occupy whatever is the remaining height or available height, right? So I'm just going to go in and give it flex 1. So what this would do is it would go in and say that, okay, you are going to go in and occupy whatever is the remaining height, okay, whatever is the remaining width that you would go in and want. Okay, so in this particular case, we have to also, okay, so we change this to flex, right? Okay, one other thing we'll have to go in and keep in mind is, see, because by default the flex direction will be row, so I'll have to change it because now the alignment of these three items are in a vertical fashion, a columnar fashion, right? So we'll have to go in and set the flex direction to column, because if we keep it as row, the header, the search, and the conversations tab all are going to go in and get aligned in a horizontal fashion, and they'll wrap. So we don't want that. So I'm going to add the flex direction as column as well. And now if I take it back into my browser, oh yeah, so now it's slowly starting to take form. Okay, the application that we're building is slowly starting to take form. So you can see the conversations tab that is showing up over here. And inside of this, what I can do is that, see, because we are going to be building this, we're going to be fetching all of this information from our server, right? So we do not know exactly how many conversations that the person would have. So what we can go in and just do is to create a component. Okay, so I'll create up a component. Let's just go in and say, let's create up a new component over here. And I'm going to save this as maybe conversations item. Okay, let's call it as conversations item. Conversations item.js. So I'm going to add an RFCE here. So the idea is that depending on how many conversations that the person has, we can go in and populate elements into this particular container of ours, right? So SB conversations are again a container inside of which we'll go in and start putting in as many conversations. Let's just go in with that conversation item. There we go. So automatically should go in and get imported. And if I take you, okay, apologies for that. Okay, so just to go in and summarize what I just did over here is that, because right now what we want is we want all of these messages to go in, conversations to go in and show up in the conversations area, right? So we do not know the exact number of conversations that a person might have. So in order to go in and accommodate this, what we'll do is we'll create up a component called as conversations item, and we can render them. We can render as many items that we want over here by basically just utilizing a loop. So when the data is going to be fetched from the server, we can just go in and render out the conversations item, and this will go in and you can say, depending on how many conversations the person have, we can render out as many conversation items. Okay, so we're going to build just one conversation item pretty quickly, similar to the design that we have. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and jump into the browser. Let's see the design that we are expected to go in and build. So we have the header and the last message and a small icon over here. Okay, so we'll be going in and creating this particular element in the next particular session, and we'll also be building in some additional components like the welcome page. Okay, so we have a welcome page that we have to go in and get displayed out. We also do want the chat area. We need an area to go in and see all the current active users and a bunch more functionality similar to that. Okay, so we're going to be going and building these additional set of items in the next session, in the next particular video. So that is all for this particular video though, but I'd suggest that you guys go in and build, keep building on with your particular project. If you face any issues, do let us know in the comments down below. All right, thank you people, that would be all.